All right, we're going to do a wood penetration test. This is 12 half-inch sheets of plywood, and we're going to test the 9mm versus the 357 Magnum and see which cartridges penetrate the furthest in plywood. And I have a lot of different cartridges to test here, a lot of different varieties, not just one. We have the Critical Duty 357, we have a cast 170 grain bullet, we have the Federal Hydroshock, we have the Spear Gold Dot, we have the Remington semi-jacketed soft point, hollow point HTP, we have the American Gunner, we have 180 grain a Federal, we have a hand-loaded full metal jacket, and then we have an Aguila 158 grain soft point. For the 9mm, we have the American Gunner Plus P, we have the Monarch, we have the Jesse James ammo, we have the Remington HTP, we have Gold Dot, we have an Extreme Defender, Critical Defense, Hydroshock, and Critical Duty. And we'll see which cartridges penetrate the furthest in plywood. Simple as that. I have all of the rate of velocities written down, so I'll name them off as I fire them, what the rate of velocity of is of that cartridge. So let's get started with the test. All right, we'll start off with the 9mm. This is the 135 grain Plus P Critical Duty. We got a 5-shot average of 1,058 feet per second. All right, Critical Defense next. We got a 5-shot average of 1,158 feet per second. Next up is the Gold Dot standard pressure 115 grain. We got a 5-shot average of 1,206 feet per second. Next up is the 124 grain Hydroshock. We got a 5-shot average of 1,033 feet per second. Next up is the 124 grain Plus P American Gunner. We have an average velocity of 1,152 feet per second. Okay, next up is the Extreme Defender 90 grain Plus P. We got a 5-shot average of 1,444 feet per second. Next up is the Monarch 124 grain. On a 5-shot average of 1,042 feet per second. Next up is the Jesse James, 5-shot average of 1,161 feet per second, 115 grain bullet. Last up is the Remington HTP Plus P 115 grain. We have a 5-shot average of 1,117 feet per second. Alright, let's go on to the 357 Magnum and see how that does. Alright, first up is my 125 grain hand load with 10.1 grains of power pistol. We had an average velocity of 1,233 feet per second. Next up is the Federal 180 grain jacketed hollow point at a 5-shot average of 1,099 feet per second. Next up is the 158 grain Spear Gold Dot. We had an average of 1,081 feet per second. Next up is the Critical Duty 135 grain. We have a 5-shot average of 1,295 feet per second. Next up is the 125 grain Remington HTP at a 5-shot average of 1,419 feet per second. That's got some power behind it there. Next up is the 125 grain American Gunner at a 5-shot average of 1,249 feet per second. Next up is the 170 grain lead semi-wad cutter at a 5-shot average of 917 feet per second. Next up is the Aguila 158 grain semi-jacketed soft point at a 5-shot average of 1,227 feet per second. Alright, we had a fail to fire on that Aguila round. I'm going to try to strike it again in a couple of minutes here. Alright, there was a primer strike on it, but I just put a new one in just to be sure. So we're going to do the Aguila 158 grain jacketed soft point. Last up is 158 grain Federal Hydroshock, 5-shot average at 1,266 feet per second. That's got as much bite to it as the 125 grain HTP. Alright, let's peel this thing open and see what we got. Alright, here we are with all these different cartridges. We got all the 9mm on this half of the 9 and the 357s on this half. So let's see what we got in the second board. That's to be expected. We all of them went through. No problem with that. Now here's board 3. Nothing out the back of board 2. All pass-throughs. Here's board 3. Nothing yet. There's the back of board 3. Doesn't appear to be anything in the back of board 3. Alright, here's board 4. Whatever that is, it's getting really big. See lead fragments right here. That would be the 180 grain jacketed hollow point. Back of board 4. Don't really see any bullets yet. There's board 5. And I can kind of see pieces of the bullet. I can see right there, board 5. That's the 180 grain Federal jacketed hollow point. You can see the back of that right there. I don't see any 9mm yet. Oh, right there, I see a little bit of the 9mm right there. That would be the Critical Duty 135 grain. And this is the back of board 5. And we caught a couple of bullets here. That's the 180 grain jacketed hollow point Federal. And then we caught the 9mm Critical Duty coming out the back of board 5. Alright, here's board 6. And we caught a bullet right there in board 6, and that is the 357, my lead semi-wad cutter, hand load. You can see a couple rounds here, or right there you see something. That is the 9mm Hydroshock, only 1,033 feet per second. This is the back of board 6, and we fully caught that round right there. Which is the Critical Defense 9mm. Back of board 6, we stopped the Critical Defense 9mm. We'd already stopped the Critical Duty out the back of board 6, then we stopped the Critical Defense. Alright, board 7. And we can see a bullet right there in board 7. That's the American Gunner 125 grain. Nothing penetrated right here. So we also stopped another 9mm Hydroshock. So the Hydroshock was stopped, the critical defense and critical duty were stopped. And here we have the American Gunner and the Aguila. I can see both rounds right there. Well, actually, no, I don't see the Aguila. I see the American Gunner though. Back of 7. Alright, here's board 8. And board 8 we have the gold dot 158 grain. And we also fully stopped the American Gunner plus P. So gold dot 357 and American Gunner plus P are pretty comparable. And we're still going. This is board 8. Oh, we have something right here. That's the Hydroshock coming out the back of board 8. And here's the 9mm Extreme Defender coming out the back of board 8. And then here's the gold dot coming out the back of board 8. So Extreme Defender 9mm, gold dot, standard pressure, and 158 grain 357 Magnum Hydroshock all came through the back of board 8. Here's board 9. Board 9. And we caught the Remington HTP 115 grain bullet. Over here is the 357 Magnum, my total metal jacket hand load, full metal jacket. So the Remington HTP plus P hollow point and my total metal jacket, 115 grain, 125 grain, penetrated about the same. But it looks like we still have a few more of each going through. Alright, here's the back of board 9. And that's the Aguila jacketed soft point coming out the back of board 9. We're still going. Board 10. We have a hole here. I believe this would be the Aguila, a mark from the Aguila. And out the back of board 10. 1. Board 11. Actually, it's the Jesse James. It's the Jesse James ammo, I believe. Yes, it's the 115 grain Jesse James. 1161 feet per second. So the Jesse James, it looked like that penetrated the furthest. So 9mm penetrated further than 357 Magnum. Most of them were pretty comparable, but out of these rounds, the 9mm penetrated a little bit further. So that's what you get between various different 9mm and 357 Magnums. Pretty interesting test. So as always, comment, share, and like, and thanks for watching.